the news this week
Yes.
about bail reform in New York State. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't think anybody's too happy with it, surprisingly enough. Especially, I know that there was somebody that got out for burglary like 3 times, and a woman in Brooklyn, I think, hit a Jewish family quite a few times, evidently. So they keep getting out and kept doing their thing. And I know I think it's Suffolk County, the sheriff's department. He was on the news this morning, and he was like a little, these people, it's cost ineffective, because what you're doing is you're just locking up the same people instead of, it's just jamming up the system even more, as opposed to.
I saw that Commissioner Bratton was in the news, very critical of this, and I saw Deputy Commissioner John Miller, who runs counterterrorism for the NYPD. He testified before Congress this week. And he literally said, this is now an actual revolving door. Revolving door justice used to be a euphemism. It's an actual thing now.
Right. And I worked in the Bronx, so I don't know how any other borough worked. But I know that I don't think a judge ever looked at anybody's stuff when they were, they were right out the door. The civilians ran it. That's how they ran it in the Bronx. So I don't know. I can't speak for the court system now. But ironically, I met up with somebody, and he had to go to court for some kind of thing, and I'm like, you know what? It's not fair. It's not made for poor people. It's made for rich people, even if you're middle class. You get locked up for DUI, it's going to cost you some money.
It's going to cost you
It's
some
going to cost you a lot of money, so it's not just,
Well, listen, the legal system is set up so that lawyers stay employed.
Yeah,
we
exactly,
all know that, right?
exactly.
But I think part of this, in my opinion, is that we have done such a good job over the past 20, 25 years of taking a lot of places in this country where there was a lot of crime, New York City being the biggest and best example, and lowering crime so much. And so now people see no need for the police. They don't understand that the police made all this happen. They think it's just the way it is. And we all know, because we lived it, that it isn't the way it is, and it certainly isn't the way it was. And then it could slip back. And, slipping back isn't just numbers on a piece of paper. These are lives. People get victimized. Businesses go out of business because they can't attract customers. Neighborhoods die. And, you're correct. People with money get a better break in court. There's no doubt about it. But the neighborhoods that suffer for crime are the impoverished neighborhoods. The rich neighborhoods, the wealthy neighborhoods don't suffer. It's the impoverished neighborhoods where crime will be more violent. And if perpetrators are going in and out of court without any hesitation, without any interruption in their business, they'll be victimizing people in their own neighborhood.
Right. Well, that's the thing too. It's they were offering. I think they said they offered like Mets tickets and different incentives. And the bottom line is people aren't like, you're not dealing with like animals. You're not giving them like a child, like, oh, we're going to let you go to the ball game. They don't want to go to the ball game. They want to make money, and so what's happening is you're not having any consequences from this.
Right.
The person that is revolving in and out, this is a lot of them are very used to this system. They're very used to it. And like you said, a lot of this crime and stuff, it's all because of poverty. It's not because of their ethnic origin or anything. It's poverty.
Right.
This is an easy way to make money. I'll sell drugs too. It'd be great.
Right.
If I couldn't get caught and half my family, if my niece wasn't working in the FBI, who knows what I'd do? It's not a bit like that weed industry. Like, I want to make my own edible business. I'm a great cook. I would do phenomenal things with that. But, again, it's like even that, we're going to cater to.
You have to move to Colorado.
No, hopefully I'll be doing it.
I just did a side gig out in Colorado, and I thought I'd smell marijuana everywhere. I didn't smell marijuana once because everybody's using edibles.
Yeah, and that's the thing. But the whole system has to be revamped.
I smell more marijuana in Brooklyn than I did in Colorado.
Yeah, you would actually. But the thing is there's all these reforms. It's not to sound like wistful or anything, but the guy that does burglaries a lot. How about we send him to locksmith school?
Well, I guess because I don't know if anybody would hire the guy.
He might, though. Let's try to teach them a trade.
Right.
Plumbers, electricians. What's wrong with that? You don't have to go to. There's no. I'm not saying don't go to college, but it's nothing dishonorable about being a laborer.
I arrested Darius McCollum. I arrested him myself, and then I supervised an investigation into him. He was a pretty famous guy who used to steal trains.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually said to the transit authority, you should hire this guy. And just give him a job. He just wants to be around trains all day. It's all he wanted to do. Just hire him. But they didn't feel they could trust him to do
right, because he probably didn't get the training. And you got to keep him under wraps. I'm not saying let's let him loose on his own. You know, you have like, just things like that. I mean, I can only think of the burglary and the locksmith because they're the best, the closest. I mean, if you beat somebody up, that's the problem. And that's the other thing too. You know, it's the woman hit. I don't know how many Jewish families.
Right. Right.
So it's not even a matter of just she's hitting somebody.
Right.
You know?
So that's an interesting point because that is like a low level amount of violence. Walking up and slugging someone. It's not stabbing or shooting them or shooting at them. But that person was terrorizing a neighborhood because they were just targeting people of Jewish persuasion. It was obviously ethnically and religiously motivated. You can't have someone running around creating havoc like that. It's just a terrible thing.
And it's a hate crime. It just elevated itself to a hate crime. So, anybody who's on patrol would have to be very, very careful when they do their paperwork to make sure that they put the ethnicity. Not every Jewish person is walking around with, dressed like an Orthodox Jew with a yarmulke and and all that. There's people that are just regular Jewish people that don't they're not ultra Orthodox or anything. What if they get punched? So then it's not a hate crime. So you have to make sure you cross your T's and dot your I's to make it clear that you can't just get a slap on the wrist, especially for something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, first of all, you should be punished for punching someone in the face for no motivation. But if you're going to elevate it to the hate crime, it should be a very apparent hate crime, not just like a possible hate crime. Or maybe could be, something like that.
And back in the day, too, we don't have any bias attacks because, that'll bring those stats up. We didn't have any robberies. It's a larceny. Okay. So now is the time that we might have to really keep an eye on what's going on and see, because it's just going to turn into utter chaos. Constantly letting people out, giving them the message that it's okay to do this. And it's not just our police. It's, and the other thing, too, it's not just cops. It's EMS, it's firemen, it's traffic agents, it's the Long Island Railroad conductor. Now even people in somewhat of a position of authority can't say anything.
Right.
You can't tell the lady, "Hey, listen, stop speaking loud on the cell phone."
Well, you've been on a bus lately. Everybody just boards the back of the bus without paying.
Yeah.
And the bus driver, maybe 30 years ago, the bus driver would say, "I'm not moving this bus until everybody pays."
Oh yeah.
The bus driver's not going to do that now. He's
That's
just
right.
like, "The hell with that. I don't care."
Yeah. There was something else too. And they just go ahead.
Yeah.
They're not going to because they can't. It's just too too many people to account for.
Yeah.
Just too many people. Like I said, they have, it's becoming a revolving door of justice. I mean, it's in every newspaper. I don't see anybody, whether they're, a little bit liberal, nobody is saying this was a great idea.
Well, Assemblyman Heastie, who's the majority leader for the New York State Assembly, and for our listeners who aren't from New York State, there are three important people in New York State government: the governor, the leader of the Senate, and the leader of the Assembly. Those three have all the power. The other people that are elected to the Assembly and the Senate, they really have no power because the leadership doles out the extra money, the committee assignments, they decide what goes to the floor for a vote and everything else. Heastie has said he wants to see how this plays out. Now, it's one thing to see how something's going to play out statistically, but real people are going to get hurt.
Right.
There's absolutely no doubt about it. And I don't know how Carl Heastie's going to be able to look someone in the eye whose loved one was injured or possibly killed because someone went to court, would have been held in the past, walked right out of court, went back to their neighborhood and
did it right again.
And escalated their violence because there was nothing to hold them back. There was nothing to motivate them to behave. In fact, they're almost being motivated to misbehave.
Right.
So
it's even as far as when they would throw. I remember in the Bronx, they would throw airmail at you. And, you went and if you can catch them, you catch them. But you made an honest effort to try to find the guys. You didn't just go in your car and say, "Oh, hey, got to go change."
So for our listeners who are not police officers or our police listeners who are not from cities, airmail is when any item possible gets thrown off of an apartment building at you when you arrive. Sometimes it's just batteries or cans of beer or rocks. Sometimes they're refrigerators and sinks and We actually had a police officer killed a couple of years ago here in New York City. A suspect dropped a bucket of spackle, a 5-gallon bucket of spackle, probably weighs about 40, 50 pounds. It reached terminal velocity, and it instantly killed the officer. It was as fatal to him as being shot point blank.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, right. You're 100% right. When the breakdown of authority permeates society, a lot of things are gonna start going. Can I say the S word? It's gonna start going to shit.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our producer gave me the high sign that I can say that.
Right. You could say shit. You want me to say the 7 dirty words you can't say on television, but you probably can say now? That's George Carlin's thing. I'm not going to do that.
That's right.
But, yeah, it's just, and what's happening, too, is, like, I think we're concentrating on, crimes that, while they're very important to people, like there's an opioid crisis, that's very important to people, but, also this is just as important, because it is a breakdown of authority, and it is, now anybody in charge. Who's going to say the pharmacist in the back who says you can't come back here? Right. I'm just going to walk back there.
Right.
So, we really do have to get a grasp on things. And I'm also, this is a whole big breakdown. Like, it just goes like from the very basic thing, not just not listening to your parents, because I never listened to my parents, except when my father told me to take the police test, and of course I listened to him. But, like, they're not, whatever happens in their family, that's one thing. But then when they go to school, they're not going to listen to their teachers.
Right.
They're not going to listen to the principal. They just don't get along in society. So we can't have a society like this. At some point, we don't. I'm not talking like a brutal punishment, like in the Middle Ages. But of course, something that's going to, you have to do something.
Well, you hit a good point there. I always used to tell people that the difference between police officer and firefighter is a firefighter puts out a fire, and nobody ever walks up and says to that firefighter, "Hey, why'd you put water on that fire?
Yeah.
That fire was a good guy. I knew that fire my whole life. Why'd you say that?" But a cop, no matter how egregious the crime, no matter how terrible it is, somebody loves that defendant.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody loves that defendant and wants to know why you put handcuffs on him, or worse, if you had to hurt them, right?
Right.
So it's a difficult job, but society needs cops.
Right.
Society definitely needs cops.
Right.
It's either going to be that or the Wild West, and I don't want to live in the Wild West. I want to live in a peaceful society.
Right.
So,
And yeah, exactly.
So, one of the root causes of all this stuff is mental illness, right? The guy, they just had a guy here, part of bail reform. It got a lot of press in New York, who was punching people in the face. He knocked a woman's teeth out just a few blocks from where we're sitting, and he rotated in and out of jail like 3 times in a week. And finally, a judge, realizing he can't hold him, decided to commit him for a mental evaluation. So he's on a 30-day hold in Bellevue Hospital. I'm sure he'll probably be out in 30 days, but at least he's off the street, not punching people in the face.
Right.
So there was a big push here in New York City to try to commit resources to it, and maybe change the narrative and get all the city agencies, rowing the boat in the same direction, and trying to address mental illness and however they can. Transportation agencies, hospitals, and of course the police are a big part of it. And they spent $1 billion, and it really wasn't a successful program.
Right. Well, the thing is too, all the homeless people they're not all crazy. Some of them actually have all their wits about them. They just legitimately fell on some bad luck. And the only, I'm in Penn Station a lot. I see the same people at night, 12:30 at night, and they're very well fed. My niece happens to be a cop she's an MTA cop, and she actually works for the homeless unit. And she said, she said a lot of them, like she had this one story, this whole woman, she was from Long Island, she was a teacher, and fell on some hard times. And of course she had then in that case she stopped taking her medicine, all right? But they got her back on track. They said, okay, you just got to make this appointment. She didn't show up. But then there's the people that legitimately, do fall on hard times, and you can never get an accurate gauge on how many homeless people there are, because the shelters only hold so many, right? So you get that count, and then you get the visible count on the street, right? And there's 70 in Penn Station, and how many? And you're never getting an accurate count, because there's a whole sea of them homeless people that live under. They live in tunnels. They got a whole thing going on, and it's.
Well, you just said it. You have a niece who's a cop for the MTA, and she's assigned to help the homeless, right? So unfortunately, all these issues, they all come down on the cops. Because if mental illness people are acting out either by simple trespass, which creates disorder and sometimes fear in people, or acting out violently and actually assaulting people or committing violent larcenies, who are they going to call? They're not going to call the fire department, like I just said. They're going to call the police department, and it's going to be an ugly situation when the police have to intervene. It's usually going to be foul language, a lot of yelling. Sometimes there's going to be hands-on, which, of course, no cop wants. For our listeners out there, no cop wants to go hands-on ever.
I don't want to get my hands dirty.
But, unfortunately, sometimes you have to go hands-on.
Right.
And it's if the city and the state, because those are the two main entities that have to address this problem. It's not a federal government problem. The federal government's role probably is to funnel money to the state and city.
Right.
But the state and city have to come up with a unified way to solve this. And right now we have a governor and a mayor who hate each other in New York State. I don't know, for our other listeners outside of New York State, I hope your governor and your county commissioner and your mayor get along. But here in New York, the mayor and the governor hate each other, and it's a problem for us.
Yeah, and Mayor de Blasio, he started this soda program. It's the one time it helps you get on your feet, right?
Okay.
And he sent the homeless to Jersey City in apartments, and the apartments were unlivable. Yes. And what happened? And the mayor of Jersey City got pissed. It's like Castro did this too. It didn't work then. It's not going to work now.
Right.
And they said there was a woman that was in, and they go to the shelters, and you have you're only allowed to spend like 30 days in they go there on like the 28th day, and they strong arm these people like, we got a place for you. You got to take it. And so this woman, there was an article in the paper. Woman goes there. There was no heat, no hot water. They're not like, they're just, hey, I have a place. Yeah, give me money. And then the city pays their rent for a year, and then the next year when they're back here. So it's not helping anybody.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
And so it's a waste of our New York City taxpayers' money.
Of course.
And now that person is a burden to the social services of Jersey City.
Yeah.
So the Jersey City taxpayers have to step up and somehow commit resources to help that family out.
Yeah, so they go back and forth, and again, you're not, and this isn't just here. There's homeless all over.
Right.
And we have cold weather. In warmer states, it's ironic, but I was in San Diego, and none of the homeless people really bother you because the police actually, and even in Boston too, they let them stay in the commons overnight, and they let them go. They can stay in the park. They just can't sleep.
Have you been to L.A. recently?
No.
So there's an area of L.A. called Skid Row. It's kind of near their city hall.
Okay.
And the whole thing is now an encampment. Like tents, shelters, all ad hoc, done by the residents there. Big problem for the cops because they have to. They are the tip of the spear. No social services will be delivered there unless the cops go with the caregivers or the people that are looking to try to help them out. I'm going to walk that back a little bit. I know that there are NGOs and private people that go in there without the police, but there's no city employee or state employee that go in there without the police. So this is all kinds of resources the police have to give there. It suppresses the economic viability of the area completely. Absolutely. There's whole streets now that have no occupied street-level businesses because how can you have a business there when there's 100 people or 1,000 people in some cases living on a street on your block?
Yeah.
And it was a complete failure of the city of L.A. to get a grip on this when it started to fester.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's just a runaway infection, and they don't know what to do about it.
Well, and also, too, back in the day, they used to have, and they were very archaic and very cruel, but they had mental health hospitals. And they were all like, Geraldo Rivera did the whole big thing, and that's fine. You don't treat, people that have illnesses like that, but we close them down. So now, instead of making a better place so we can, you have to have some place where they can go and not just for 30 days. You have to have so they can get some kind of treatment so they can get their medicine every day. And then they give them a little confidence and boom, they're out on their feet again.
Well, they need guidance,
yes.
Right? They need guidance. It's hard sometimes because, people don't like to be supervised, right? And some people need it. And it's hard to tell an adult, who hasn't committed a crime, no, you have to do this.
Right.
I was part of a case many years ago. It was a pretty famous case here in New York City. A woman by the name of Kendra Webdale was pushed in front of a train to her death. Nice girl. She was young, 23 or 24 years old. She had moved here from Buffalo. She was making her way into the world, and a total psychopath who was off his meds pushed her in front of a train. He didn't flee. He was apprehended by some civilians on a platform. So as a detective sergeant, thank God we didn't have to figure out who did it and find him. We had him, and he was convicted, and he just actually got out last year. But the state assembly and the Senate, everybody took it as a call to action. And they passed a law. It's called Kendra's Law, which you can go to a judge and you can say, hey, this person needs to be on meds. And they're not taking their meds. So we can either force them into a hospital or we can kind of motivate them to take their meds, and they have to come and get their meds every day. It's almost like a methadone clinic. They have to, you got to watch them take their meds and that type of thing. That was something that the state and city and our government did well. That was a good thing.
Right.
They took this horrible tragedy and they try to change things for the better.
Right.
Unfortunately, I think a lot of times government only does the easy answer, which is throw money at something. Create an agency, hire a bunch of people, don't give them a mission, don't give them any leadership.
Right.
Don't give them anything to measure to see if they're doing their job and if they're doing it right. And then of course you throw your hands up 5 years later and say, what happened? Where'd all the money go? How come things aren't better?
Right. Now we have more mentally ill people on the streets. And the thing is, too, a lot of times, like, especially a lot of the homeless, a lot of them are bipolar. And, they stop taking their medicine because they feel better. I'm not bipolar, but I stopped taking my medicine just because I forgot, like for 3 days. And I was like, I'm never forgetting to take that again. It would have been a tragedy. Right. You know what I'm saying? So, and I just forgot. And I just happened to walk in the bathroom and go, I forgot to take, I didn't take it for 3 days. No wonder I'm ready to, go off the wall. But and I'm I'm not really supervised, but, here's people that, again, like I'm like, I got to really make a plan to make sure I do it. And I'm conscious about that. But when you're feeling better, like if you're not playing with a full deck to begin with, and you don't have that support system, or especially if they live by themselves or whatever, that's saying, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that, make sure you take it,
Well, I would imagine it's a type of thing where you're going to have like cascading effects, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you stop taking it, and little by little, I knew a few bipolar people, and you start to see it's like the seasons change. First they come in, their socks don't match, then they come in their shirt and their yours match.
I just checked to make sure.
Obviously, but like it's little signs like that. They start to not care about how they look. So they start from feeling really good, and then and then they go back into that little depression. So you see the unraveling, and it's sad because like sometimes it's obvious, but sometimes it's not. And you want to say, dude, your socks aren't matched. Did you take your medicine? You can't say that. They might just be, no, I got these like that. I have another pair at home.
Gotta be careful of who Michele hangs out with.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to make sure your socks match.
Well, it's a lot on a plate for our police officers today. I hope that people understand that the cops are working really hard. I really feel for these guys and gals that are out there these days. It's much more complicated job than when you and I were doing it.
Oh, absolutely.
Might not be as dangerous. If we get together and have a beer, we'll all be telling stories about car chases and shootings. And maybe that doesn't happen as much anymore for these cops. But, boy, the challenges they have now with a criminal justice system that seems to be working against them, and every problem that society can come up with is falling into their lap. Just doesn't seem fair. And, of course, they don't get to retire after 20 years anymore.
No.
Now they have to work 25 or 30 sometimes, depending. It's just a tough road to hoe for these poor coppers. So, it was good talking to you, Michele.
It was excellent talking to you.
Michele, why don't you tell everybody where you're performing this week?
This week, I'll be at the Climate Lounge on 7th and 1st. When will I be there? I'll be there all day Saturday, Sunday, and I'll be there at 4:30. You can come by.
Pulling a double shift, telling jokes. All right. I'll be performing in my backyard, grilling steaks with this nice weather we're having. So I'll maybe tell Mrs. Kane a few jokes. Hopefully she'll laugh.
I'll write a few for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, no problem.
Hope to see you folks next time we get together at Inside Blue 360.